Hello and welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host today, Ryan Bigelow, the Library Director at the Cottonwood Public Library. And today we're going to be talking to you a little bit about the Cottonwood Book Fair. We're excited. We have some of our authors here with us today to talk about what they're working on and what they've been doing. And this year the book fair is going to be in conjunction with our Walkin' on Main event. So it's going to be Saturday, November 9th. We're really excited to be a part of the Walkin' on Main. We're also going to be after the re-grand opening of the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse. So there's going to be a lot of interest. We're going to be at the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse, so come check us out at the book fair, and also come check out the new building, or the revamped and revitalized building. So lots to see, lots to do on Saturday, November 9th in Old Town Cottonwood. My first guest today is Miss Judy Hoffman. Judy Hoffman has a book here called Flagstaff's Forgotten Cowgirl. And Judy, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about this book? It looks like it maybe is based off of a true story.
Yes, it is. It's my husband's great aunt. They went to Flagstaff in 1896.
Wow.
Her brothers were cowboys for the Hash Knife, which was a large cattle company.
Okay.
And they were tough guys.
Real cowboys.
Real cowboys. Real cowboys. And she is a tomboy.
Okay.
I based that on the research that I did. The picture on the front cover is actually taken in Alaska, in the Yukon.
Okay.
She was a gold miner up there for 8 years. So she was not your average woman.
Oh, wow. And you brought a visual here for us. Is she in here too?
Yes, she is. This is her right here.
Okay.
And if you'll notice how she's riding the horse, she's riding a horse what I would call the traditional way. Her sister, who is on this horse, is on side saddle. And I don't know how they did it personally, but you can tell she's got boots on, she's got her hair back in a scarf. She's cowboying at this point.
She knows what she's doing. Yeah,
she does. She's very good at what she does.
Wonderful. So
she was raised on a ranch too.
Clearly, she knows what she's doing. So this is, you did a lot of research on this book. You've researched the family, but this is a fiction piece, or so this is based off of a true story?
It's based off of a true story. When you do a biography on someone who's passed, you cannot do a true story unless you have their words verbatim.
Wonderful.
So I researched as much little history as I could of Flagstaff and the surrounding areas to come up with a book.
Wonderful. And so this is your first book, as I understand it. But there are plans, or you're in the works on other books?
The second one that I have is You Can Call Me Lizzie, and her name is Lizzie. Okay. So it's a young adult book. I had lots of people ask me if this was for young adults. An older young adult. But so I had so many stories about her that I did a second book for young adults when she's a young girl.
And that one's in the works, or is that one being published now?
It's being published now.
Okay, being published now.
Yeah.
And then is there another one down the line?
There's a third one, and it's going to be on her brother, who was in the Hash Knife. Okay. And then went on down to the Morenci area and was a deputy sheriff. But before that, he took a gold mining trip himself to Mexico that went very wrong.
Very wrong. Okay.
Very wrong.
Okay, interesting. So you've done a lot of research then.
Yes.
Can I ask how you went about doing a lot of that research?
I'm involved in genealogy.
Wonderful.
So I was, my mother had passed, and I was kind of needing something to do, so I decided to do my husband's family. And one night down in the public library in Flagstaff, it seriously was very stormy out. The lightning was popping, and I'm looking at microfiche, which is always fun. Yeah. And I ran across this article. And I read the article and I went, oh my gosh. And see, I get goosebumps.
Yeah, you do.
And I want to say that she became a part of me at that point.
Okay. There was a real connection.
I could not ever stop thinking about her. And that was back in 2009.
Okay.
And I kept wanting to write a book and write a book. And I actually left the library that night and I told my husband, I said, there's a book in that. Just that one little article. I said, there's a book in that.
So that it was one night at a public library, it kicked it all off. Now,
yes, the spirits were.
Everything was aligning, and this is what you've got now. You're going to have kind of a trilogy off of that one article.
Yes, I really felt very strongly that she wanted her story told. Because when I call her the forgotten cowgirl, you go through literature in Flagstaff, you cannot find her name.
Oh, interesting.
She was forgotten because what happened to her was a shock to the community.
Okay.
So they just buried it.
Huh.
Which happens so much today with domestic violence and things like that.
Okay, it just kind of goes away.
Yes,
quietly,
yes. If we don't talk about it, it never
under
happens.
the rug, and we forget about it. Okay,
Yes.
So you did your research. A lot of it started at the Flagstaff Public Library, but I understand you also spent some time growing up at the Sedona Public Library. Is that true?
Yes, I did. I spent many hours at the Sedona Public Library.
Wonderful. So you're from the Verde Valley originally, then?
Prescott originally.
Okay, Prescott.
Actually, Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm an Arizona native, and I love history. I love researching, and so this was just fit in. I was a dental assistant for 32 years.
Okay. Wow.
And then I knew there came a point in my life when a lot of things had happened, and I knew that it was time to write. And I called my boss and I said, I had had some surgery and stuff, and I called my boss and said, I'm not going to be back. I'm going to write my book.
Wow. And that's an amazing story, and getting to know a lot of these authors, I find that there's that story a lot of times with writers, that writing has always been something that they've wanted to do, they've wished they could do more.
Yes.
And then a life event happens, or they find themselves at a library and they just find that now's the time.
That's right.
Now's the time. Now's the time to do that, and we're really happy that you did. So, if we want to purchase this book, where can I find this? And besides going to the book fair, of course, how do I get my hands on this?
It's available through Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and I have it placed in a few local book. Not local down here, but local places in northern Arizona.
Wonderful.
Winslow has actually been very good to me.
Okay.
And of course, that was the middle of the hash knife. Winslow was the center of the hash knife.
Okay.
And the hash knife played a big part in it. She, like I said, she grew up in ranching. So when she went gold mining in Alaska for 8 years. I could not tell you why. But when she came back, she married the man that she had always wanted to marry, and he was a rancher, and she became a rancher.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we'll make sure to also have a copy at the Cottonwood Public Library, so if anybody wants to check it out, we'll make sure and get a copy. And if you can't find it online, you should come and talk to Judy on Saturday, November 9th at the Cottonwood Book Fair, because then you can actually meet her on a face-to-face.
I'm on Facebook Marketplace, too. You can buy it through Facebook Marketplace. And Etsy is a website.
Okay.
I'm on there.
Okay. So a lot of places online that you can look up, and Judy Hoffman, and she goes by JK, and so look her up. If you can't find her, or if you just want to come say hi, Saturday, November 9th, the Cottonwood Book Fair, in conjunction with the Walkin' On Main event from noon to 5 o'clock, we'll be at the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse. And we'll be right back here, and we'll have another local author come in and talk about their piece. So, Judy, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be right back.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
There are people who struggle with addiction and homelessness. Sometimes it may feel like there is nothing we can do to help.
But there is. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help those in need transition away from homelessness.
When you give someone a handout, you could actually be supporting an addiction.
A better life starts with better health, especially for those living in the streets.
Support solutions, not addictions. You can make a difference. Visit cottonwoodcares.org.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm Ryan Bigelow, the Library Director at the Cottonwood Public Library, and today we're talking to you about our book fair that we've got Saturday, November 9th. We're in conjunction with Walkin' On Main Event. We'll be at the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse, the revitalized Cottonwood Community Clubhouse from 12 to 5 p.m. So come check us out, take a look, and come meet some of our local authors. Our next author is Robert DeMayo. Robert, I remember you from last year, actually. You did a book reading, and I was fascinated with your story about how you got here. You're kind of a world traveler. I know we've only got 10 minutes, but can you touch on that a little bit for us? That's incredible.
I got into writing in kind of a roundabout way. I went to school for biomedical engineering, and when I started working in the hospital, I realized I didn't like working in hospitals. I was working for my father's company. He didn't really want me to leave, so we got in a fight, and I hit the road. From 20 to 30 years old, the next 10 years, I did 10 6-month trips.
Wow.
Each went to a different continent, and each involved a big overland journey. So I've crossed Africa 3 times. I've crossed North America 19 times overland.
Wow.
And I hit over 100 countries. And I ran out of money that first time I left after about a month. And I was gone a year and a half and hit 40 countries that time.
Wow.
So I got jobs on the way. And I eventually became a journalist. My first assignment, I drove from New Hampshire to Panama in 1988 and did feature articles there. And I just kept going. That experience led to eventually 2 novels that I wrote. And it got me a job for a travel office that was the Explorers Club and Archaeology magazine. So I was marketing dives to the Titanic and Antarctic voyages. I got to work with the Leakey family in Africa, and Neil Armstrong I got to meet, things like that.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I didn't know it was him when I met him. You know, I was talking to this old guy, and he was staring at a stuffed cheetah exhibit, and we talked for about 40 minutes about different parks we'd been to in Africa. And when he left, my boss came up and said, "You do know that was Neil Armstrong, right?"
Wow.
But I love,
of course.
Yeah, I love exploration. It was a real honor. And but when 9/11 happened, they closed the office, and I took my wife, a 9-month-old, and a 2-year-old girl, and we drove to Alaska and lived in a wall tent, and I became a tour guide. And when I needed winter work, we came down this way, and I found Sedona and started driving Jeep tours. And I just fell in love with this place. You know, I come from New Hampshire, where the glaciers came through. There's nothing older than 12,000 years. But you walk out here, and even the rocks are hundreds of millions of years old. And I've always been fascinated with legends and history, and that kind of pulled me into writing about this place.
Wonderful. So that ties right into your book, Sirens of Oak Creek, right? So tell us about your book, Sirens of Oak Creek, and then how did your journeys kind of shape what you're writing about now?
I grew up, I liked James Michener growing up, and how he would take a bunch of history and kind of mix it together. And, you know, a lot of the legends that you read about this place, especially in that area between, say, the Enchantment Resort and Oak Creek Canyon, they had similar things like that. A lot of them mention a box canyon with a hidden entrance and a cave in the back where water dripped. And so I kind of mixed it all together and tried to mix the history with the legends and see what might have explained it.
So it's kind of your theory. After hearing the legend, after doing some of the research, you kind of get to develop your own story.
Right. And there's, the novel has 4 books to it. The first one's prehistory, the second involves the Spaniards, the third is pioneers in the 1880s, and then the fourth is 1987 in Sedona. They're all connected. They all, most of them involve West Fork. And to make it kind of not get boring for people, what I decided to do is the 4 novels each have 3 acts. So I broke them down so that there's 12 6-chapter acts.
Okay.
And I wrote each one in a different month.
Okay.
So that you could really not just feel the history, but you could see what the difference is between July and August in West Fork, and really kind of highlight the nature. And I challenged myself to try to make something that could compete with, say, Zane Grey's Call of the Canyon, which had a lot of beautiful nature descriptions.
Right.
And there's things like Bear Howard. If you read the old pioneer history about him, quite a few cases mention that he found the Lost Coconino gold mine. But then he said he couldn't find it again. And nobody knew the plateau up there better than Bear Howard. And then when we had the slide fire, they found a cabin that they attributed to him, and it had a rail line leading from it. And no one really knows what he was doing with that. So, you know, I just kind of speculated a little bit. What if he found that? You know, he was a wanted man, so he wouldn't have gone telling the world about it. But I just kind of mixed together some things like that and came up with, I think, a good story. You know?
Well, it sounds like you're really passionate about it. So are these 4 books all intertwined and interconnected? Or?
It's one novel that's 436 pages.
Okay.
So when I call them books, it's kind of like how old literature used to be, where they'd sectioned off the books.
I see.
You know, it's all one novel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when I look you up, I see there's not just Sirens of Oak Creek. You've done other pieces before, right? Is that
right. This is my 6th novel.
Okay.
The other one that's local that I'm trying to market this year is The Legend of Everett Roos.
Okay.
Everett Roos came out here from California in 1931 when he was 16. He bought a couple burros and he just started exploring the Southwest. And he got around. He crossed the Grand Canyon a dozen times. Okay. People would see him down by Roosevelt in the winter, and then the summer someone would spot him by Mesa Verde. And the Hopi let him stay with him. He got to actually go in the kivas, and he got to do the antelope dance when he was with them. And I think the reason why so many doors opened up for him was he was a very sensitive kid, and he was an artist, and the Navajos might find him 100 miles from a road painting a sunset, and they could tell that he had been crying. He was very emotional. So they thought he was a mystic, and they gave him their own name, which translated to Picture Man. And he just lived such a unique life, and the literature that's out there really didn't complete it for me. There's a dozen documentaries about Everett, and there's a dozen books. They're all historical, and they try to prove what happened to him, because after 4 years of traveling, he sent back a batch of letters that said he had tired of the white man's world and didn't want to go back to it. And they never found him again.
Wow.
So there's a lot of theories what happened to him. And I know Everett's nephew now, Brian, and he said to me, he goes, you know, they never found his body. There's some people that think the Navajo hid him away. There's all these theories, but so what I decided to do was take the 80-odd letters that his parents published in a collection called A Vagabond for Beauty, and I created scenes and wrote a historical fiction account of his life. So it's not obsessed with what happened to him at the end of his life. You know, in fact, I don't want to give the ending away, but it stands on its own, and it's I think it's a nice tribute to someone that lived a very unique life.
Interesting. I'm fascinated with the research part. Are you researching, I'm guessing, for months, years at a time? How does that work?
I'm lucky that I've always been into history. So, you know, for me, I'm always reading about it, and it's there a lot. So the legends of the Spaniards or things like that. Each book has a different challenge, though. For Everett, it was writing about a painter, because I wrote the book and realized that, you know, a painter would have looked at nature differently. And went through again, and I had to make a whole paint chart because, you know, they had colors like vermilion, you know, they had things that we don't really use. So I made a whole paint chart and went through and painted the book.
Okay,
and
wow.
it's changed how I walk through nature. You can't, suddenly you go out into nature and you realize, well, there's got to be at least 30 shades of green around me, you know, and it was a real treat to be at Everett. Like, one of the things that he did that they found out about was, if he went to a Native American site and was staying there, and this is in the early 30s, and he saw a petroglyph wall, he might listen around, and if he heard maybe a canyon wren, he would go over and paint the classical notation for that on the wall. He never painted over anything. It was always in a separate space. But 30, 40 years later, archaeologists might be there, and one of their younger students looks up and says, wow, the Native Americans knew classical music, you know, and it confused people because they didn't know who did it until someone figured out that each place where that's done was a place that Everett Roos went in the 30s.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so I could talk to Robert for hours, and obviously Robert's an expert. He's done a lot of research. He knows his stuff. So I can't talk to him for hours, but maybe you can come check him out at the book fair Saturday, November 9th. Get to know him, shake his hand, and see what his books are all about, what Robert's all about, what he's doing. So he's got a lot going on. A very interesting story about how you got here, and then incorporating that in your novels. This is fascinating. Unfortunately, we've got to end our session here with Robert. We'll have another local author here upcoming. We're talking about the Cottonwood Book Fair, Saturday, November 9th, in conjunction with the Walkin' On main event, and we'll be right back with one more author.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
There are people who struggle with addiction and homelessness. Sometimes it may feel like there is nothing we can do to help.
But there is. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help those in need transition away from homelessness.
When you give someone a handout, you could actually be supporting an addiction.
A better life starts with better health, especially for those living in the streets.
Support solutions, not addictions. You can make a difference. Visit cottonwoodcares.org.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm Ryan Bigelow, the Library Director of the Cottonwood Public Library, and today we're talking to you about the Cottonwood Book Fair, Saturday, November 9th, from noon to 5 in conjunction with our Walkin' On main event. So as people are beating the streets and walking, checking out art, wine at Walkin' On Main, we encourage you to come check out the community clubhouse, the revamped and revitalized Cottonwood Community Clubhouse, and come visit with our local authors. We're going to have 30 Verde Valley authors and come and chat with them about their works. So I was always fascinated that we even had that many authors. I had no idea. Chanda, she's with us now. You did the book fair last year. I see you at the library often. We thank you for being a patron. I did a little bit of research on you. I looked you up and boom, there you are. You're all over Amazon. How many books do you have, and how many have you written?
I have now written and published 7.
Wonderful. That's amazing.
I have 2 series going.
Okay.
And actually, I'm now working on what is hopefully going to be the 8th.
Wow.
So, you know, a retired creative writing teacher.
Okay.
I worked on my writing usually during the summers. Learned a tremendous amount about writing from working with my students' writing.
Okay, interesting.
I think, you know, they always say, you know, what's the best preparation for being a writer is do a lot of reading, but oh my, if you are trying to help other people improve their writing,
right.
you really kind of learn to have an eye for what is being done in what you're writing.
Well, that's wonderful. So you're a teacher and a student.
Yes.
Always,
yes.
right? Always teaching, always learning.
Great way to put it.
And always trying to perfect your craft and what you're doing. So you're writing a lot now, and you've brought a few titles with you. What do you have here? And well, looks like you've got a fascinating covers and genres.
Covers and genres, yeah. So I started with this series, which I call the Sci-Mind series. And it's a kind of science fiction trope that had been in my mind for a long time, which is the whole idea of telepathy and mind reading.
Okay.
And I wanted to do a series in which that becomes a natural faculty that people have.
Huh.
So it's not like mystic, psychic, it's just some people have a sixth sense. But how would it work?
Right.
And also, how would the rest of the population react to it? In other words, if between the two of us right now, one of us knew the other actually knew what the other was thinking or feeling.
Oh, goodness. I would be scared.
A little nerve-wracking,
yeah.
right? So that's kind of the thrust for the series.
Okay.
Is how would a function like that work, and how would it what kind of interactions would it lead to between people. So that's
a lot to wrap your brain around.
And this was the first book in the Simine series.
Okay.
And I am now working on what I hope is going to be the fourth.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
The other series, it's called the Zorn and Grayall Elsewhere Mysteries.
Okay.
And Zorn and Grayall being the two main characters, and I have to confess, they are kind of my Holmes and Watson.
Okay.
Because from the time I was a very young kid, I was just in love with the Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson series. The kind of cold analytic detective set against the kind of everyman character. Of course, in this case, I've identified both my lead characters as female.
Okay.
And in many ways, this series is kind of a conventional, almost cozy mystery series, but it has a little flip to it in that it takes place in its own invented world.
Oh,
and it's not really fantasy.
Right.
It's just a different geography.
Interesting.
And actually, all the murders and the motives move. They're all influenced by the particular region as the characters move through this world, which I actually call alothi, which is a Greek word for elsewhere. We get the word alibi eventually from it through Greek and then into Latin, because people kept asking me, is this past, present, future, another time, another place, an alternate universe? And I just kept saying, oh, it's just somewhere else.
Wow.
So we move through this, right now, a 4-book series.
Okay.
As Zorn and Grayall move through this series, encountering murder mysteries that they end up having to solve.
So I've always wondered about authors who write murder mysteries and have never, they've never been involved in a murder.
One hopes.
One hopes anyways. How does an author go about either researching or coming up with the ideas? Because there are so many interesting turns and twists that maybe some of them bear some truth.
Well, and I have to confess, I think part of it you come to by being a reader of mysteries. As I say, mentioning the Sherlock Holmes series and going on into some of the great classic writers like Christie and Sayers and right up to the present like P.D. James.
Okay.
But sitting down to try to write one, a few things occur to you that, first of all, there does have to be a death. And if it's a murder, somebody has to have done it for a reason. So you need a motive, and you need a perpetrator. And then you also need a variety of other characters to compete to be suspects. And yet all those other characters also have to have a natural place in the narrative you're constructing. And I have to say, in terms of my own interest in that genre, I think I'm actually more interested in the why done it than the who done it. I'm really interested in exploring different motives. And in this series particularly, as I went through it, it had its own impetus to direct me to really try to come up with very different reasons in each book that somebody chooses to do the drastic thing of taking another life. And what is the impulse maybe for somebody to actually make that decision? And so that's why I say I think my books have a very strong why done it factor.
Interesting. Thank you for taking us inside the mind of the writer for a minute there, because I would have never gone that direction. And clearly, these are doing well. I see a little sticker here. Can you tell us what does that mean, and why did you get that?
Well, thank you so much. I'm so pleased about that, because starting with the second series, I learned about the New Mexico-Arizona Book Awards, which is sponsored by the New Mexico Book Co-op. And they have, what's nice about them is they have a huge range of categories. Even within fiction, they have 3 or 4 or 5 different categories you can enter your books in. So you can kind of choose where, with the best slot you think for that particular book. And so I'm very pleased that over some years of entering that competition, my books have 3 times been named finalists.
Oh, wonderful.
So
Congratulations.
they're very kindly, they allow you to get stickers that you can put on your books.
So somebody else is validating that this is worth reading.
Right, and what
nice.
I really like about the way they do things too is, I mean, you have to actually submit, I think it's 3 books.
Okay.
And they choose as readers to kind of come up with, you know, their judgments, librarians,
okay.
Agents. So they're really coming up with people who are very experienced readers and, you know, judging books. So you used a great term there, as to validate.
Right.
It felt very nice to get that sort of.
Somebody else who's qualified has actually said this is good.
Yes.
This is worth reading. So. Yeah. Well, Val, I could probably talk to you for hours. Maybe we should have a whole nother segment just for authors, because this is all fascinating. But if you want to find out more about what Val's doing and what she's working on and why she's done what she's done, come talk to her at the Cottonwood Book Fair, Saturday, November 9th from noon to 5 o'clock. We're in conjunction with the Walkin' On Main event. Come find out more about her series, what's going on next. Come visit with all of our authors. We're looking to have 30 local authors from our area discuss their own works and their own pieces, and come to get more information. So and see the new renovated Cottonwood Community Clubhouse while you're there. Val, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate having you on. We'll chat more at the library. I know we'll see you there soon. I'm Ryan Bigelow. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Cottonwood. We'll see you next time.